Welcome, welcome as people are joining. Welcome to our webinar. Happy to have you here today and excited to talk to you about elementary school projects and launching high quality PBL in elementary grades without overloading teachers. So as people are joining the Zoom room, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Vicki Wolf Bender, and I am the Senior Director of Sales and Marketing at PBLWorks. I'm pleased to lead this webinar and share our product teach with you. And most of all, I'm excited for you to hear from two members of our digital curriculum team today. They wrote and guided some of our elementary teach units that launched in December. So you get to hear directly from them about those units and some of their favorite aspects about the units today. So while we are, let me move my screen forward. While people are joining our Zoom room, if you feel comfortable, please drop into the chat where you're joining us from. You're welcome to remain silent if that's what you prefer, but the chat is open for you to engage with others throughout the webinar. If you have questions, we welcome your questions throughout the webinar. There's a Q&A box in the bottom, kind of in the center, I think, so that you can enter questions. We have on the back end of our Zoom call, my colleague Natalie Catlett is managing some of the behind the scenes details of the webinar. She's a former PBL educator herself and a PBLWorks national faculty member. So she will help to answer any questions you may submit on the fly. She'll do her best to stay up on those questions. And she'll also pull some questions to pose to the full group when we get to the end of the webinar. All right, I see some things coming in the chat. So people coming in from all over. That's great. From the Philippines and Australia and Colorado and Indiana. That's where I am. So welcome, Hoosiers. Washington and Massachusetts. Great. We normally see people coming from all over, not just the US, but the world. So welcome. Keep dropping that into the chat. Okay, I do want to see just drop an easy poll in here so that we have an understanding of what your role is. And so it's just an easy way to kind of get an idea of who's joining us today. And I will try to launch that while I talk. There we go. So you should see a poll pop up on your screen and just an easy way to tell what best describes your role: teacher, school leader, district leader, instructional coach, or maybe something else altogether. Give you just a second to answer that. And not surprisingly, it kind of runs the gamut here. I'll give you just a second and then I'll end the poll. You'll be able to see the results here. I think most people have answered that. So it's a mix, right? Like lots of teachers in the room, some instructional coaches, a few school leaders and district leaders, and a healthy group of others. So we've got a mix in the room, which is great. I think you'll find that, get that off the screen there. Thank you. I think you'll find that there's something for everybody with this product and with these PBL units. So I hope that you find what you're looking for here today. Do a quick review of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to do a quick overview of why we built this product, why teach, why now. I'll go in and do a quick demo so that you can see the product in the wild. It's the real product. And then we'll come back to have a discussion with my colleagues, Amanda Clark and Lisa Morellis. Lisa is our managing director of digital curriculum. She's been with the organization for 8-ish years in a variety of roles, but Lisa has run the gamut in her experience as an educator, as a school leader, leading district initiatives, and she's the co-author of a new book out about PBL and leading PBL. So she has a ton of experience. Amanda also has had multiple roles and been with our organization for about 7 years. First as a national faculty member and lots of different roles in writing our curriculum and contributing to our curriculum. So I'm excited for you to hear from both of them today because I think you'll get just a different perspective on what it takes to really write and produce gold standard PBL units. At the end, if you stick around, you'll have access to a 14-day free trial of Teach so that you can not just see it, but get in and really nose around and experience it yourself. So stick with us. Okay, let's get rolling. So, why teach? Why now? Well, we don't have to tell you that education is tough business. It's really never been easy, but it seems to be more and more challenging for teachers and leaders now. You face issues like funding uncertainties, teacher shortages, student learning losses, assessment gaps, and really an increased community scrutiny. Now, we won't claim to have a magic wand for every issue you face, but we do offer a reimagined approach to teaching and learning that we believe can help with some of those challenges. We all got into education to make a difference for teachers and for students, to inspire them, to motivate them, to help them succeed in life, whatever that looks like for them. And to do that, we need teachers who can do and be their best in the classroom every day. And we need school leaders who can support and create the environment for that to happen. We really all deserve that. Project-based learning, we believe, is the answer to that call. It is the reimagined approach to education that provides students with the agency to make their learning meaningful. It is the way good teachers want to teach, cultivating both content and success skills simultaneously in hands-on and relevant ways. And because of that, it can be one answer to some of those juggernaut problems of our day, things like student engagement, absenteeism, and teacher burnout. At PBLWorks, we've seen these benefits for more than 30 years. The research proves that PBL leads to deeper, more meaningful, engaged learning for students. And teachers agree. We've heard from those who participate in our professional learning for years, but they do wonder, is PBL just one more thing on an already full plate? Does it take away from those important content skills that I need to teach? And truly, it can feel difficult to have to design your own projects. Meanwhile, we've been working with leaders for that amount of time too, and they have questions as well. What does it mean to assess students in a PBL classroom? How do we prepare educators of all levels to teach PBL? And how do we scale it consistently across a school or a district? Well, we heard you. And at PBLWorks, we believe that implementing PBL should be powerful, not overwhelming. So to address that, we built PBLWorks Teach. Teach is a teacher-facing, web-based application. No student data involved at all. This is for schools that want an easier way to implement PBL. Teach provides ready-to-use, standards-aligned project units for math, science, ELA, and social studies. And today there are more than 50 expert-crafted PBL project units for K through 12, and even more coming this spring. And today you're going to get to see some of those K through 5 projects. Now, those of you who have been involved in PBL know that PBLWorks is really fond of gold standard PBL, and all of these projects are high quality. That means they have the gold standard stamp of approval. They've been intentionally designed with these 7 essential design elements and the 7 teaching practices in mind. Now, if that's unfamiliar to you, if that's new to you, we have a lot of information about that on our website. For this webinar, we're going to dig into the demo and then be sure we hear from Amanda and Lisa about some projects that are really important to them. So for this, I'm going to jump out of the slides and jump over to Teach. So hopefully you can still see my screen and see the Teach platform. Again, this is teacher facing. This is for teachers to be able to have access to ready to use PBL units. And I want to take you in so that you can just see how easy it is to find a project. So you can explore projects here. You can filter by a subject area or grades or even success skills. So these are all the pre-K through 5 projects. And let's see, I'm going to go to Playgrounds for Everyone. So I'm not going to show you everything here, but I'm going to do just a very quick overview of how things are structured in Teach. And hopefully you'll see that it's been very intentionally designed so that it's easy for educators to follow and easy to find what you need. Every project starts with an overview, and there's always an overview video to kind of give you a sense of what is this project about. And of course, there's a driving question. So this driving question, how can we make playgrounds safe and fun for everyone? If I scroll down, and I would play the video for you, but I'm going to play a different video for you later because there are plenty of videos interspersed throughout all of the projects. Gives you a summary, and I can tell from reading the summary and just the quick look, this is a kindergarten project that lasts about 3 to 4 weeks, and it covers force and motion and engineering design. The students are going to learn and explore push and pull. And you have not lived if you have not watched kindergartners explore push and pull. It's a real joy. If you keep scrolling, you can see it's aligned to Open SciEd curriculum. And the students are going to work on 2 projects. All of these project units have 2 major products. One is an individual product, and one is a team project, or product, excuse me. I'll dig into those more in a minute. Keep scrolling, you'll see all the learning goals and standards. And if I hover over them, you can see specifically which standard it is, in this case, Next Gen Science Standards. There's also a success skill goal. This one is critical learning. So there's always some success skill tied to the project. So the overview just gives me a sense of the project. I can also look at the project path and understand how is it structured. And this is very similar for those of you who know project-based learning, the launch and building knowledge and develop and critique and kind of follow that pattern until we present our work at the end. But how does it break down? How is it structured so that as an educator, I have a sense of how the milestones work? And then I love the assessment map because it takes each of those major products and breaks it down so you can see the tasks that ladder up to each of those major products. So there are tasks associated with a couple of deliverables for this major product, the individual equipment model. And associated with this, you can click in and see not just an example of what the students might create, but a planning resource for a rubric. There's the rubric you might give to students or parents, and a checklist along the way so that students have a way of kind of checking off, did they do the work associated with that particular product, all wrapped up in one place. The same is true for, scrolling up, for the team product as well. And so there's rubrics and materials there as well. Speaking of materials, there's a resources section for every project unit, and you can filter down to the lesson. You can filter down to just student materials or teacher materials. You can filter down to, I just want to see videos, for example, or student handouts, whatever might be important for you. That's all in the overview section, but of course over here you'll notice broken down by milestone each of the lessons, and every project has about 13, 15 different lessons depending on the length of the project. And so I'll just click into one. Here's lesson 11, working together as engineers. And again, there's a driving question for this lesson. There's a prep section so teachers can get ready for that particular lesson. And then the lesson steps are broken down so that you can see everything you need to do step by step. And each lesson follows a repeatable pattern so that both educators are familiar with it and students are familiar with it. So we'll always have an engage section, shows what slides to cover. There'll always be a mini lesson, again, slides and resources for the teacher. Then there's work time. And you'll notice as I scroll down, there are pro tips along the way, even a video from one of our PBL experts. And I'm going to click into that so that you can just see.
Students are about to combine their playground models into one team design. So the question is, how do we help them make those thoughtful decisions together? Here's a few ideas. One,
These are usually about 2 to 3 minute videos from one of our national faculty or one of our staff members who have taught or have been in the classroom themselves and have that expertise, and they'll guide you through that particular point in the project, or they might give you an idea of how to scaffold. They might have that just in time teaching expertise that you need just at that point in the project. Again, pro tips along the way, how to engage and coach students. And then the final part of each lesson is always about debriefing and reflecting because we know that real learning happens when we reflect. So each lesson is built out this way. And as a teacher, sorry for the quick scrolling up top, you can mark this lesson complete as you finish it. And I love this because you get to reflect too. How long did this lesson take? Oh, it took about 45 minutes. How successfully did the students meet their learning goals? It was very successful. How engaged were the students? They were engaged 4 out of 5, let's say, and then maybe some notes. What worked well? What do I want to do differently next time? And once you put those notes in and save the reflection and mark it complete, poof, there's some celebration to be had. So I love that because everybody needs a little bit of affirmation there, right? And then it marks you to go to lesson 12 and move on. And you'll notice that this check mark indicates that you finished that particular lesson. That kind of gives you a sense of where you are in the project. Now, I jumped straight into lesson 11, but normally there'd be check marks all along the way, of course. There's so much to go through and teach, but I wanted to be sure to show you just kind of that part of the process. There's also a community where you can interact with other teachers and PBL experts and ask questions and get some feedback. And then a PBL playbook where you can kind of build your learning about PBL along the way. But I want to kick it over to our experts on the call so that they can kind of provide their insights. But very quickly before I do that, and I'm sorry, I'm going to leave this in, well, maybe I'll go into slideshow mode for you here. I want to talk about how this product is available to schools. And then we'll talk with Amanda and Lisa real quick. So we sell Teach as a school subscription, and we do that very intentionally because we want all teachers to have access to the projects, not just one teacher or a handful of teachers. So we sell it as a school-based subscription. All teachers have access to all the projects. So even if you're a sixth grade teacher, or sorry, a fifth grade teacher, you have access to the sixth grade projects. So you might find a sixth grade project that you think is appropriate and your fifth graders could handle it. And you might use that. So you have access to all the educators, you have access to all the projects, you have access to all the embedded professional learning. We have a customer success team that helps get you onboarded, helps you along the way, and you have access to that community too. So all of that is available for just under $5,000 per year for a school license. Okay, with that, I have some questions, and I'm going to now bounce a little bit between the question and trying to show you Teach while Amanda and Lisa share their answers here. But I'm going to go to Amanda first. So, Amanda, tell us a little bit about a favorite project that you worked on and give us a high-level overview of it, and then what makes it stand out among your favorites? And while you're talking, I'll try and go over to teach and
Yeah,
share.
let's go to the Teach web platform and move to the second grade project called Plants on the Move.
Got it.
Great. And so one of the projects that I had the opportunity to work with our team on is this second grade science project. So as Lisa and I shared today, it's important to know that we have built out K-5 science and K-5 social studies, and we'll talk about what's included in those. But just to be clear, we have not developed math units yet. So in Plants on the Move, these second grade students, they get to learn how pollination happens and how plants really rely on the wind, the water, the gravity, and animals to make plants reproduce. So the cool thing that I love, and if we look at the driving question and we look at the standards that are coming up, the plants are going to have to move in order to reproduce. And there is a role called a botanist that the students are going to learn all about. And in this particular project, the botanist is going to have two jobs. One job is to first learn about the structures and the functions about those plants and animals. They're going to get to take notes in a very scientific journal. And then you might not know this, but botanists are also conservationists. So they have an opportunity to really think about habitats and plant and animal diversity in specific habitats. And so we want to have our students be conservationists, which means they're going to have to educate the public. And so as Vicki was talking, there's that individual product, that journal, but then the team product is going to be a play. And so the teams of students are going to write scripts about the content that they were recording in their journal and then present it to an audience as if they were teaching them about plant animal conservation. So I love that opportunity here in this unit for the students to be hands-on every day, investigating all these little seeds. And you can imagine what happens when you take a dandelion and you blow on it and the poof goes everywhere. We get to uncover the science behind that. And then one of the kids' favorite things, if you've ever taught elementary or specifically second grade, they love to talk about what happens when a bird eats some seeds and then they fly over here and then they poop. And it's like, oh my gosh. And so the kids are just super excited because we bring it right to their level with the plants and animals that are in your community. So they are going to apply all of that kind of science along the way by making connections, thinking about plants, thinking about animals, wind, water, gravity, and then they're going to apply it in this play. And to write the play, they're going to have to be really creative. They're going to have some collaboration. And then most importantly, they're going to have some opportunities for that success skill, complex communication. So they are going to need to think, ooh, if I'm in a play, what does my face need to be doing if I'm not the one talking? So nonverbal. And then what's my turn to deliver my lines? What should my body language be and how should I speak? So everyone in the audience can really hear it. So hopefully you can tell I'm very excited about all of our units, but that's one of the reasons I really like Plants on the Move.
I love it. Well, using that same project, how are standards alignment and content focus approached? And I'll just jump right back over there. I think Natalie is dropping the questions into the chat so that you have the question while I'm over in Teach, because I know it's hard to go back and forth.
Yeah, thanks for getting us on that page. So we're back on the overview, and this is what you, the teacher, will see every day. We can scroll a little bit further down and see those exact standards. So all of our elementary science units are built on the NGSS standards. So to plan this specific project, we were really thinking what parts of life science would make the most sense and what standards could we combine for this project to science standards to really help the students learn the content and develop those success skills. So as Vicky's hovering, you can see we did make observations of plants and animals and compare that diversity in different and unique habitats, and then develop a simple model that mimics the functions of animals in that process of pollination. So once our team had settled on those two life science standards, we thought about additionally what literacy skills might need to be practiced in one of our science units. So I can see, and Vicki can hover over R, because that's one of our reading standards from the Common Core literacy standards. So we want students to be able to make connections. So we have an informational standard that would come through in the research and investigation process. And then I'm hoping it's front and center. We have the opportunity for some speaking and listening, asking and answering questions. And sometimes those literacy standards live in the background. And so they might not be real present right here on this overview, but we know as elementary teachers, there's going to be leaning into those standards as they develop the skills that they need and contribute to kind of developing that whole child. And I also want to point out one thing as we're scrolling through this overview and how it works in all of our science and social studies units is that there is a misconception that my kids aren't ready for projects yet. Or I'm going to have to teach them all these things and then we'll click and we'll buy this subscription and we'll be ready. And that's not the case. So we have really taken a developmental approach to our unit design and getting students into the project on the first day. And we saw on that assessment map all of the tasks and the deliverables and the products that are going to come together over the span of the lessons. So it's not get them ready and then we're going to learn about pollination. We're going to learn about pollination and how it happens from the onset of the project.
Excellent. Let me jump to question 3, Amanda. Tell us what implementation looks like in classrooms. So, yeah, I know how long it says it runs, but how does it fit into pacing and how flexible is the project? I think a lot of teachers are curious about things like that.
Yeah, so let's hover over on that left side this time and just kind of point out some key pieces that help answer that question. And then you're welcome to click in maybe lesson 4 along the way if that's helpful. So as Vicki mentioned earlier, all of our units are designed in that same phase approach. And science and social studies at elementary are between 15 and 17 lessons. And a lesson for our design is about 45 minutes of engaging hands-on, minds-on instruction, simulations, watching a video, going on a field experience, inviting a guest speaker. And so there is a lot of flexibility in our elementary day that if you have 45 minutes, you can engage in one of these lessons. If you have more time, you could start in on the next lesson. And we know there's going to be a fire drill. And we know that we got to stop and go to music and we have to go to recess. We get to do all those great things. That our lessons are super flexible in the sense you could start, head out of the door to go to some of those other experiences, and then come back. So it's not saying that it has to be a science block in your day. It's a 45-minute chunk of learning that happens following this form. So we have that engage opportunity. We get students into the work. We think about what they want to know and need to know today. We introduce them to the lesson focus. We engage them in a mini lesson about today's content in hopes of answering the driving question by the last day of the unit. Then we think about how we're going to set our young learners up for success. So we prepare them for work time and we offer some scaffolding and support for how you might do that with your students. We move into work time as we're developing tasks and making deliverables and coming together to make those final products. And then we end every day with a debrief and reflect. Opportunity for the students to reflect on the content they've been learning, the processes they've been engaging in, the products they're making, and then themselves as learners. So you can see in each of those phases, there's an opportunity to naturally take a pause if that's what your schedule needs. One last piece about flexibility in the elementary space. You've heard me talk about plays, scripts, journals, asking questions. Those might fit more naturally into a different part of your day, or you might be able to go deeper. So if we know we're going to produce a play, maybe we need to watch a play. Maybe we should read some scripts or see what it looks like projected on a screen. So maybe there's an opportunity in the reading workshop time, the writing workshop time, social emotional learning, if there's a part of your day that would connect to any part of these lessons. So we have a lot of flexibility with that implementation and know that we're with the students usually all day. And so this should work pretty well in one or two or three of those different approaches.
I appreciate you calling that out. I think elementary school teachers are the most flexible of all, right? So let's shift over to Lisa. I would love to hear, Lisa, from your perspective about your favorite project and how does it differ from what Amanda shared? And I'll go back over here and click home so you can tell me which one I'm going to.
Yeah, I'd really like to share. I'm a former social studies teacher, um, secondary social studies teacher, high school mostly, and I also served as an elementary principal for several years. And one of the projects I'm really, really excited about and got to work on a bit was Voices of Freedom. It's a grade 5 social studies project. And in this project, students act as constitutional researchers and civic storytellers. And what they do is they explore the First Amendment freedoms of speech, religion, press, and assembly. Um, the project is aimed to deepen understanding of democratic rights through research and civic dialogue. Um, they form project teams based on their focus freedom. In all of our elementary units, the students are working in teams as often as possible to help them understand the um, concepts and to help them work to develop products. And they even support each other in developing their individual products. So all of our projects, as Amanda and I think Vicki have already pointed out, have that individual and team product, major product that they're working towards. So each student on the team writes their own case study on one freedom. So that's when they're serving as the constitutional researcher. And within their case study, they're learning lots of things. They're doing historical research, they're doing timeline research, they're interviewing current people, like they're interviewing community members to determine their thoughts and feelings about this particular freedom that's their focus for their team. And so they're really trying to get some real world perspectives there. So they put their case studies together, and then the team comes together to create and deliver a live den talk to shift into that role of civic storyteller, to talk about what they learned, to share the civic insights, and they share it with peers, families, and ideally civic guests, people that are involved in local politics that would be especially interested in that, would be amazing audience members that we recommend for this project. I love this project because I think it's the right bite size, right? The grain size for fifth graders. They're getting to do some really good research. They're getting to have a lot of academic discourse with each other, and they're getting to really, engage with their families and community members to find out what really people think about this, and to start to formulate their own opinions about what they think about their freedoms. It's a really fun one. I enjoyed working on it.
Great. Well, using that same approach of use this project to answer this next question, Lisa, let me go here. So how does this project support teachers throughout the facilitation, and why was that important in designing this project and all the projects really?
Yeah, so we've learned a lot over the past 30 years in supporting teachers with improving their teaching and learning practice, and particularly through project-based learning. And we know that it can be challenging for a teacher we totally believe in teachers and designers, but to design all the pieces that they need, where the driving question, the public products, the assessments, everything's aligned the way it needs to be. So, and the standards, especially the standards. So we've tried to design and plan the units to ensure they're as doable as possible for teachers, especially those teachers that are newer to PBL and are newer to teaching, although teachers experienced with PBL and teachers that are experienced will also really, really find these units beneficial. So of course we design them using our gold standard design elements that you saw in that framework that Vicki showed us before. All your handouts, all your resources, all your slide decks are provided. But we know from experience that having a beautifully designed project like the projects in Teach might not be enough. So they won't automatically lead to effective implementation, because facilitation really matters. So our hope is that if the project is beautifully designed for you already, you can actually concentrate more on facilitation. Building these units gave us the opportunity to do this, to integrate some very specific features and moves to support teachers with the facilitation piece with building community with their kids, building relationships. If you can go to lesson 8, thank you. This is the lesson where the kids are actually conducting their civic interviews. And in this lesson, if you go to first there's a the whole unit has a getting started video. So to help you think about what you need to get ready to facilitate this unit. But if you go into this lesson, you can see the lesson prep task, Vicki. If you can go to lesson prep tasks instead of the lesson. Sorry. We try to create these lesson prep tasks to help you think about what you, I don't know if we're on lesson prep tasks.
Oh, sorry, here.
Yeah, there's some lesson prep tests there. Wait, I am struggling to see. 1 second, let me look really quick. Yeah, so all the things you need to get ready, all the supplies, all the copies you have to make, everything that you have to do to get ready to teach a specific lesson is there in your lesson prep task, so you can facilitate effectively. Then within the lesson steps, if you can switch to that now, thank you, Vicki. I got a little lost there, I can't see well. You can see on the right, the slide deck is right there. And you can actually preview the slide deck just by using the arrows right there and see all the slides that are coming up. You can actually present to your kids straight from the app by flipping the blue button. And then you can actually make a copy of this and make your own version of that lives in the app that you can adapt and change if you need to change anything for your own students. And you can view your own view of this and start to make edits of that. So the slide decks really, really match all the lesson steps exactly. But if you want to have your own version of that, or let's say you want to change and add your own learning agreement, you can do that. Teachers have the ability to do that with the deck there. And then when you scroll down into the lesson activities, you can see that we've also included PBL pro tips. They're in the blue boxes. So if you can scroll for a blue box, you can see that there's a PBL pro tip to help you, and those are tied to our teaching practices. Also, under each section of every phase, we've kind of tried to lift up the key documents and the key slides that you're going to be working on or using for that particular part of the lesson. So we've tried to make it very user-friendly, very easy for you to just be like, we all know the real life, right? You think you're going to have time to prep or plan, but you don't have as much as you thought, but we've tried to make it pretty easy. We've had these videos. You can see this coaching corner video in this lesson here to help you know what to watch out for, what to look for, how to make sure that in this section of the lesson that you're as effective as possible and that the students can be as successful as possible. So there's all sorts of little things that are very intentional to help you. We've also added some optional activities because you might want to go deeper into the units. And our goal is that, you can implement the unit on Monday, not someday. Have been around PBL practitioners for a long time. They're like, I really want something I can just do next week or do in 2 weeks. And we tried to make it so that that's really feasible and doable for teachers. So
fantastic.
It's really important to us to make facilitation very easy, to answer the question. As easy as possible.
Talk to us about students, Lisa. How does the project, and use the same project as an example, how does it serve a wide range of learners, including multilingual learners and students who need additional scaffolding or extension of learning?
Yeah, so first and foremost, and Amanda alluded to this, every lesson follows a similar structure. And that actually will reduce cognitive overload for all students and actually teachers, by the way. Kids, it's predictable. They know they're going to do engage. They know they're going to do a mini lesson. They know they're going to engage in some work time. And then they know they're going to get to debrief and reflect. And all of those parts, which is sort of a workshop model, are intentionally designed to support all learners and learners at all different levels. We know that you're going to have someone who's reading at a grade level way below. You're going to have someone who's way ahead, and you're going to have some kids who struggle with focus, and you're going to have some students who have behavioral issues, all of those. But that use of a common structure of the lesson itself is throughout all of our units. And then the second thing we've done is use common routines and structures, common routines. So for example, in this lesson, in this unit, in lesson 6, we introduced in one of the mini lessons an annotation strategy. In this lesson, they're really learning one of the more important standards is a reading standard. And so we teach them how to annotate, and they practice using annotation multiple times with different texts in the unit. They do that individually and they do that in teams. So students who are struggling have the opportunity to practice multiple times, get help from others. The teacher during work time can walk around and coach individually, and we try to give them tips, even questions they can ask during that in those PBL pro tips. And then another example of another common routine in this one is one I love, a stand, share, sit. And we even have a coaching video in this one to walk teachers through how to do that. In this routine, teams will stand to share one idea. Then they listen carefully to other ideas shared, and they sit when they hear an idea that has been mentioned. It's kind of a riff off novel ideas only, but it also gets kids up and just to break up the lesson a little bit for them, keeps the pace quick, ensures voices are heard, and encourages some active listening. In this lesson too, can you go to L5 maybe? If you can, lesson 5, Vicki, and go to work time. In this lesson, they're doing an evidence card sort, and if you expand the activities, and there's a blue box where you can see like an example of some of the questions we gave to teachers that they can use as they're walking around and coaching students. Also, content is very carefully scaffolded. So we're having students really think about what they know or think about something first. And then we access their funds of knowledge because they come to us knowing a lot. We have them reflect on what freedom means to them. We get to hear different perspectives from their peers. We have multimodal ways of introducing. In this one, there's a video. Then there's like the evidence card short. Then there's larger reading. So we're trying to really scaffold it so that they can access the content in a really kind of strategic and thoughtful way. And the final thing I want to say about these units is we're trying to integrate instructional strategies with very high effect sizes, and that we know that will work with lots of different kinds of kids. For example, the jigsaw or micro teaching or reciprocal teaching, which can work well with students that have different needs or maybe aren't able to sometimes grasp content from some of the traditional ways of delivering instruction.
Excellent. I'm going to jump back to the slide deck for these last couple of questions because I think it's really for both of you. If I can make my slide deck work. So when leaders look at these ready-to-use projects, what do you want them to understand about how Teach balances consistency at scale with professional judgment at the classroom level? And I'll throw it to either one of you.
Amanda, you want to start us out?
Yeah, sure. So you've heard it probably 3 times. Consistency is important to us, but the consistency is in the design. So you maybe felt like Vicky was showing the same thing over and over. She was. Like, right? That makes it easy to follow. And how is this going to work in my classroom? But the second part, that professional judgment, that delivery, how you set up workstations, how you have a photo booth table, come and pick out historical photos and then go do this at the laptop station. That is all up to the classroom teacher. And so those pro tips help you make some of those decisions. And then, like Lisa mentioned, once you're in facilitator mode, the concepts and constructs are there for you, little breadcrumbs throughout, as well as some very direct language. I don't know about you, but my econ isn't great. And so if there's 1 or 2 sentences that the lesson can just say, if you just say it like this, it will make a huge difference for all of the lessons. So we offer some of that consistency, knowing that you can draw on your knowledge of students, how you've built the culture for PBL and critical thinking, complex communication, creativity in your own classroom. And then you get to engage and coach. And so we work off the model of guide on the side. And so these lessons really balance that for you. Those moments of some explicit instruction, some direct instruction, and then guiding the students through whatever modality the unit calls for, the lesson calls for, and that you think is best for your kids.
Yeah, I love that, Amanda. And I want to add in a little bit too. I had the opportunity yesterday to meet with I was at a conference here in Hawaii, and with classroom teachers, school leaders, district leaders, state level leaders, directors of curriculum at the state level in Hawaii. We're all one big district in Hawaii. And one of the things one of them said to me is we're trying to really shift away from traditional assessments, from SBA, more performance assessment. And I said to him, what you really need are common products and common rubrics. And to be able to do that, validation and that reliability. And I think one of the things that Teach does is for every project, there is common products and common rubrics. So that's the consistency that you want to see implemented. Common, standards that they're using when they're teaching the same product, so that you can have your grade level PLCs of teachers using the same project really be looking at student work, and we're looking at the same thing. So that's where you're going to get a lot of consistency with those rubrics and with the common products across your teachers at a particular grade level that are teaching the same unit. And then even across your school, everybody's doing PBL, everybody's standards aligned, everybody's has rubrics, they have the common checklist, they're all using, really well-designed rubrics that align to the products that the students are actually creating. So that's going to allow you to have some consistency there and really be, what do kids know? Where are the gaps? How can we help them grow? And that's where that professional judgment of teachers saying, okay, we need to add here, we need to bring something more in here, and this way for this group of students, they might need it introduced this way, it will come along. So I think you'll see a lot of consistency, but you're going to also, what I love about these units is that they're also going to allow for teacher flexibility and implementation.
I think I hear you both saying, let teachers be great teachers.
Yeah, and they know their kids best. The students in front of them, they know them best. They know what they're gonna and be successful, and they know how to adjust to meet their needs, and they're going to have more opportunity to do that when their units are already planned for them.
Super. All right, one more question, and then I want to be sure that we have a few minutes to answer some questions that may have been coming up. I have not been able to monitor the Q&A, so Natalie's going to tell us what's coming up in the Q&A here in a minute. But last question for the two of you. How does Teach support teachers who are new to project-based learning while still honoring and extending the practice of educators who already have experience designing and implementing their own projects? Sorry for the misspelling on the slide there. I just noticed that. And I think you started to address that in one of your answers earlier. So what would be your response to this one?
I can take a stab at that. I'll start and you finish up this time. The persona that we design all these units around is a teacher who's new to PBL and new to the teaching profession, right? So if you've done work with us before, you know about the curb cut. Sometimes when something's good for one particular person, like a sidewalk curb or sidewalk ramp instead of a curb, then lots of people can use it and lots of people can be successful with it. And we also, because we're experienced practitioners, we've worked with them all over the world, wanted to make sure that teachers who already had experience with PBL would find the units very helpful and very useful. Last summer, I was in a session where we were introducing the units to a group of teachers, and there were teachers in there who'd already done 101, PBL 101, and taught their own projects. And one of them said to me something that really struck with me. She said, "Oh my gosh, looking at the units and how they're designed, now I understand why some of my own projects didn't work. And now I can see how I can use this structure and use this format to design and develop. And I can use this model with this particular content and replicate it with other content, buckets of content." She was so excited about it. So I think it can really meet the needs of both teachers, of both groups of teachers, and those who are more experienced are really going to see the ways to extend and go deeper, but still stay connected to those rubrics and success criteria and standards for the unit.
I can assure you we're already hearing that from both kinds of teachers. Teachers who are designers have said, now I know what gold standard is. So I think that's absolutely proving to be true. Amanda, what would you add to this?
I would add, if we think about plants on the move, how we talked about that NGSS standard, it said different habitats or local diversity. And so while we're adhering to national standards in our design, you get to bring a lot of our units through authenticity to a local context. And so the scaffolding and the structure is there, but we probably haven't given you everything you need to go do it like you would at my house in Des Moines or at Lisa's house, because the pollinators are going to be different. And the community change that's happening in your downtown or in your school district, that's going to be different. So it's not to say you don't have what you need, it's there, but you get to adapt it to what you know best for your kids. So that part of the question, like design and implement, the design is there, right? We said it's consistent, but it's the teacher professional judgment, and then it's the implementation. So I'm not saying you need 12 read alouds. I'm offering one great read aloud, but in your teacher backpack or in your school library, if you've got three other ones that you know work better, great. And that's where that experienced practitioner could sub some things in. So we got the good for everyone version and then add in what you know. If you have a certain other thing you're supposed to do, right? Sits in the closet and you drag it out, it will work with what we've designed because we're giving you the bones to layer in what you know and what you need based on what you have available for mostly a science lesson, right? Sometimes we have to swap out different materials and we have that option, but we can tell you how to do it for everyone.
That's great. Thank you, both of you, for addressing these questions. I want to quickly jump slides here. If I can make that work. Thanks for hanging with us. While people are dropping questions into the Q&A, and Natalie is taking a look at that, drop in the chat what excites you the most about what you've seen or heard today. What's really jazzing you about these K through 5 units and what's available in Teach? Just give us a hint of that in the chat. If you don't have a question to put in the Q&A, we'd love to hear from you. And while you're doing that, the link to a free 14-day trial is on the screen. That's it's a fairly easy URL. I apologize. We can also put that in the chat if it's a little bit easier to just click on it. Natalie, if you could type that one in the chat for us too, please. That would be really helpful. So I'm sort of chatting while I'm waiting to see what we all are interested in the chat and what questions you might have. Lenice, thanks for dropping in layout and concise explanations. Great. I love that. Natalie, any questions coming through that the group, Lisa and Amanda, can answer?
One question that came up earlier in the webinar was specific to world languages. Lisa or Amanda, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. We started with developing at the elementary school 2 projects for English. I mean, sorry, that not ELA for social studies and science. So there's 4 projects per grade. By June, there would be 4 for every grade in elementary K to 5. And then in the secondary, we have 2 projects per grade in middle school for ELA, math, social studies, and science. And in high school, we have 2 projects per grade for ELA all the way up, 2 projects per grade. I mean, we start to go by subject in some of the disciplines. So biochem, physics, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, world history, US history, 1 for government, 1 for econ. We're just starting to think about, okay, now where are we going to expand? There are projects in our project library, project blueprints on my.pblworks.org that are world language, CTE, PE health, fine arts. And we're just starting to do some outreach, listening sessions to hear what do the people want. We know world languages is going to be up there, and we hope to have that. I can't really give you a timeline right now because we still have to prioritize once we hear from the field. But I'm hoping that we'll have those sooner than later.
Yeah, if there's something that you're eager to see in a product like Teach, drop it in the chat. We'd love to use this as a way to gauge what's the interest is. Okay, a couple of questions are coming in the chat. Isabel, I'm not sure I'm totally following your question about the module. Like, could you buy just one PBL module? We don't sell the individual modules. We sell everything together as one school subscription. But you wouldn't have to, your whole school wouldn't have to switch to PBL. It's just that that's how we sell the subscription. And if I'm not answering your question well, send us an email and we will try to do a one-on-one to answer that. And I think Rhonda just answered Amy's question. Yes. Okay. Other things that are coming in the last minute or so before we sign off for the day. I hope that this has been helpful for you to be able to see and dig into a few of the projects that are in there and be able to get a feel for how Teach works and how it can help your school and your educators. If you'd love to see the high school units, we're doing a webinar next week on the high school units that I think on February 5th. So that's an opportunity too. So we will send out this recording probably Monday. We'll send out a link to the recording so that you'll have that, and we will also link you to this trial sign up again. But feel free to connect with us. Natalie just dropped the link to connect with us if you have questions or if you'd like to talk with us about how you go about signing up for Teach or getting a subscription for your school, or connecting with us about professional learning, which of course we're also excellent at. So again, thank you all. Amanda, Lisa, thank you for spending an hour with us and sharing your expertise. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Aloha.